Hello, and a warm welcome to the Women of Crazy World podcast, a podcast that illuminates the extraordinary journeys, trials, and triumphs of remarkable women in enterprise across the African continent. Whether you're seeking motivation, valuable insights, inspiration, or a sense of belonging in a community that celebrates women's success stories, then this podcast is definitely the right platform for you. We have found that sharing stories and experiences is one of the most effective ways to change minds and provoke actions. Our host, Cindy Lamini, will be guiding us through life transforming narratives as she connects us with her Pan-African network of women making massive moves in the marketplace. We hope that these women's journeys ignite and inspire you. And now I would like to introduce our fabulous host, Cindy Lamini.
Greetings to all the women of Crazy World out there. This is your host, Miss Cindy Lamini, and I'm so excited to be taking the center stage alongside incredible women in various places and spaces across our African continent. Together we'll be sharing profound insights, winning formulas, as well as intertwining our stories of success and empowerment. It's important to note though that this podcast isn't just about storytelling, nor is it limited to an exceptional listening experience, but it's an actual fact a movement. And your tuning in every month is crucial to the rhythm and growth of this movement. Now, with that being said, I'd like to encourage you to assist us in growing our podcast community by simply sharing the podcast link with your women networks far and wide.
Today I have a special guest all the way from the vibrant city of Lagos in Nigeria. Miss Folakemi, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi Cindy, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you, I'm so excited. And more than anything, it was just when I even saw Women of Crazy Wealth, my brain was just like, yes, this is definitely, the environment I'd love to be in. So I am Folakemi Oloye, I'm from Lagos. So I was born in Jos. So Jos is in the north of Nigeria. I'm a military brat, and that just simply means that, my dad was in the army, so we moved around quite a bit. I've been to quite a number of states in Nigeria. So I was born in Jos. I grew up majority of my life in Lagos, but then I've also been around for, and I'm the firstborn of my family. So, first daughter. In Igbo land, we call them Ada. So, they're treated with some level of, how would I call it? Respect, but then there's a huge responsibility as well. And I went to University of Lagos. I studied mathematics in school, but I'm currently an interior designer. I am the CEO for Teal. It's a group of companies. We have it's furniture, lifestyle, interior design. We have a retail store and we have our factory where we produce our made in Nigerian furniture. And what I enjoy most at the moment is, the freedom to express. And in as much as entrepreneurship has its own, hours. So yes, there's freedom to express, but the hours can be very long. It's a fulfilling one. So yes, I think that's what I enjoyed the most at the moment.
That sounds super fantastic. I'm just amazed at the military brat turned to interior designing. Talk about opposites worlds colliding.
Indeed.
Yeah, I loved how you just began to talk about your business, but I want to backtrack a bit and just get to know a bit more about this fabulous Folakemi. So we're just going to go straight into a couple of questions, knowing a bit more about who you are. We're going to flow into your business background, you know what I mean, and just move it from there, free flowing if possible. So yeah, the first question I have for you, fabulous Folakemi, is who has been the most influential person during your upbringing and why?
I would say my parents. Have definitely been very, influential, that's for sure. And I guess for a lot of people, their parents would have influenced them in some way or the other. My parents, my dad, in terms of, just being grounded and understanding the concept of contentment, and that contentment is not necessarily, how would I call it, sort of like laziness or contentment. Doesn't mean that you just sit back, but it's being appreciative of where you are, and then looking forward, but not necessarily comparing yourself with anybody else. So that for my dad. And then for my mom, I definitely get my entrepreneurial spirit from her, that whole can-do attitude where no matter what comes your way, it's like, you know what, we're going to find a solution and we will press on and move forward. So, and then looking for business opportunities, in the big, in the small, like in our everyday environment. So yes, I would say my parents have been like the most influential people.
That's so fantastic. I think we can all tell a story about, how our parents influenced us in one way or another. I think it made sense because that's the first person you kind of saw when you kind of came into this world. That was your first audience, your first community, your first everything. So it makes a bit of sense. Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump right into the next question, and that's basically going to be, and you can answer this in the context of, your personal life and your entrepreneurial life, and that could just basically want to know from our fabulous Folakemi that what has been your biggest failure, and what was the greatest lesson you've learned from it?
I think that this year has been a big one for me, in that this year we opened our retail store. This year we did quite a bit of expansion, but this year has also been one of the years where I've had one of my, in business world, one of my biggest failures, majorly because, when expansion happens, and it's happening like that, and I'm learning now that maybe it happened a bit too quickly, and I thought I'd strategized enough and preempted enough, but at the end of the day, when you have people when you have people in the mix, there is just that amount of planning you do, and then you find some, interesting things. So this year, I would say, has been one of my biggest. We have expanded, we've got some like really, really decent projects. And we have succeeded very well in some, but we also failed in others. What had happened was as you expand, you believe that you've trained people enough, and you say, you know what, let me start releasing and trusting. But what I found out is that I also needed to still create that level of check in place, that level of control. So in as much as I'd said, okay, I release you, let's fly, let's go with it. We've worked together for a while. I've trained you. You are now in a position of responsibility. Maybe some of the things I could have done better would have been to, create maybe better SOPs and guidelines that would have allowed them to transition better into that into the responsibility that's been given to them. So yes, I think this year I've gotten some very good accolades, but I've also gotten one of my worst. So yes.
I love the part where you're just basically saying, you're expanding, and you had done everything as far as you're concerned, done the training, planned about it, strategized about it, but then you realize that, it was awesome to grow, but have I developed the team enough? Have I put in some proper checks, And it's a mistake that we generally make as entrepreneurs, because how we just forecast everything. We want to go quite quickly, and we are trusting the process. And in trusting the process, we're also trusting the people. But as we venture into what we're doing, we're realizing that, my people are not quite as equipped. So I like that. It's a very good lesson to point out, because it's an often flaw that we have as entrepreneurs. We're just quickly rushing through things, and we kind of forget to check, is my team ready? Is my team ready? So I like that. And I love those kind of lessons. I like that's coming through from you, because it's also teaching me something. Because, expansion is great, but are you ready in terms of the human resource that we have available? So that's really fantastic. You're teaching me something right there already.
I'm glad.
I think you also kind of answered my next question, because the next one was really going to be, we all love receiving the compliments, the accolades, and the great pat on the back when we're doing great things. And then when it's going wrong, that's when we get the criticism, and you could have done this better, you could have done that better. That also kind of comes through a lot as we kind of do that. But I've recognized that those criticism moments are actually a positive for me because I mean, it kind of gives us an idea of what we can do better. It's a bit painful
Exactly.
to go through it. Yes, it's unfair when you're going through it, but if you sit down and reason with what is being said to you, it has a potential to develop you and grow you and direct you better. So I don't know if you have anything to comment or, based on that when you're saying, you know what, we love the accolades, but what happens when someone criticizes you? Does that take you 10 steps backward, or does it give you a moment to pause, reflect, and grow?
I love this question. I love this question because, just recently I went through it. Like I said, this year has been one of the ones with good accolades, like really good ones. But it's also been one of the years where I have, gotten one of my worst criticisms. And in actual fact, this one of them that happened as recently as last week. I'd gotten this criticism about a project that we're done or that we're currently, doing, and the criticism be honest, was around our quality control process. What had happened is, we work with multiple contractors, we work with quite a number of people. And just like I said, because we had also expanded into a different city. So our head office is in one city, and then we had expanded into another city. So I had a different team. But this team member is somebody that worked with me in Lagos. He knew who he has been with us 4 years or so. So we moved into sort of like the team there. And obviously it's a new terrain, so it wouldn't have been as easy for him, unlike, with Lagos with like a lot of support. We had all the support, but he had support, but it was remote. So the client, looks at the space, and she just goes straight up, tells me, look, my expectation of Teal Harmony is way higher than this. This doesn't cut it, and all whatnot. And this was somebody that, we had been on this project for a while. What that meant for me was, and nobody likes criticism, honestly. But what it did for me was, I pretty much froze. I'm not even going to lie. I literally froze. She gave me the criticism. I took it on, and what I did next was I just said, you know what? Let me take time out. And in taking time out, it wasn't like it was an easy process, because I still had like a lot of my to-dos, my work that needed to be fixed, that things that needed to be done. But I realized that this had become a priority. If I didn't sit back and just process what had happened and how to move forward and just identify how was I going to not repeat the same mistake again. And honestly, what happened was, at first I was crippled. I mean, like, I could not, my brain froze. I could not do anything. I think because I never expected it. It's not something after doing this for 8 years, you're just like, you're way past some things. So when something like that occurs, your brain is just like, what? How? I've paid my price. I've paid I paid my dues. I've paid the price. I've learned. I've grown. How am I here listening to this? But what happened was, after I took out that time, I spoke with a mentor, and I was just honest to say, look, this is what's going on. This is this. And but said, first and foremost, it's still a learning process. Don't beat yourself down too much. Let's write down everything that went wrong, and let's start putting them into buckets. Let's group them into buckets, like the ones with the similar threads. And then let's take out time when we close this year to start strategizing. But I can be a little bit of an overachiever. So even though I grouped them into buckets, I already started, doing some level of like a deep dive into some of these things and saying, okay, what are the things that we're going to do here? And how do I make sure that when we do our strategy session in the new year, we don't lose sight of this thing? So I totally agree with what you said, which is, it's not stop and regress. It's a stop, what are the lessons learned? And then how do we move forward? And so that would be my response. I think criticisms are very good. They have helped me to grow to where I am, where I am today. I've learned things from like people management, knowing that as simple as sometimes the best thing is not to talk, it's better to just listen, take it on, and then go back and reflect as opposed to trying to respond in the time, which may also come out as being defensive. So yes, I think criticisms are opportunities for growth, honestly.
I love that. Criticisms are opportunity for growth. And part of that, answering that question, you also mentioned something very, very important is, as you are given the information and, you're taking this criticism head on, you went to your mentor. This is one area where, again, as entrepreneurs, we believe that we're just journeying all by ourselves. And we have, I don't know if it's a problem or I don't know what to call it really, but this mentorship idea is slowly creeping in, while perhaps in my parts of the world, which is Eswatini, we're still trying to get into the mentorship program. You need to have someone to mentor you. It's a lot easier walking this journey with someone. So what I love from that response was, you are not taking this, let me call it a beating for lack of a better word. You're not taking
It is a beating. It was a beating.
You didn't take the beating all down by yourself. You said, right, I'm going to go talk to someone I respect, someone I look up to, someone who I know is got the best interest for my growth, wants to see me succeed, but is also going to be very honest and tell me, part of this is actually quite correct. Let's look into that. So this now speaks into the community, that the type of people we have around us as entrepreneurs. It just says to me, it's very important to not walk this journey alone, but walk this journey with, people with sound minds, people with insight, people with foresight, people who understand you, the business, and the challenges, and the customer, and the criticism, so that you're not taking all this burden all by yourself. So I just love that. I just thought to just, dive into that mentorship just a bit there, because I enjoy that. It's something we really need to just, I don't know, get on the mountaintops and shout about. As an entrepreneur, it's important. Have a mentor, have someone you can always get into and have a conversation about your good days and your bad days.
Absolutely. And as entrepreneurs, except you have like co-founders or partners, it can be a very lonely journey. So that support system, honestly, when I spoke with her, because prior to that, like I said, I used the word crippled, but it was really, really hard. It was really hard. That's why I said it was a beating, right? It was more like I was on a verge of like, woe is me. Oh my God, do I have any business doing this, doing this? But after speaking with her, she just made it she eased it out and made it simple. She was direct, and helped me to be able to own my role in it. But she also made me realize that, look, it's not the end of you. Let us see what we can do here. And that after I finished speaking with her, I went to eat. I could not eat all day, but after I spoke with her, I was able to go and eat and just say, okay, you know what? It's not the end of the world at the end of the day. So yes, mentorship, it's such a gift. It's such a gift. I think at the end, and another thing I would say about mentorship is that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're trying to put up the perfect front because you don't want anybody to look at your business and look at you and say, you made this mistake. How do I trust you with my business? Or trust you with, whatever jobs or business they're going to give you. So we end up trying to put up a perfect front, but the truth is there's no opportunity to learn there. So we need to learn how to be vulnerable. But even in that is knowing how to also be a good mentee. I think that's also a different topic altogether, but yes.
Definitely a different topic altogether, something that we should actually circle back and have another episode all about mentorship.
Yes, totally.
I love that. Now, Folakemi, tell me, you've been doing this for 8 years. And yeah. I'm going to give you a scenario. Here comes Miss Cindy here, decides that, you know what, I want to get into interior design. And I've got no clue how to even go about doing that. But here's Folakemi, who's done this for particular, 8 years. I mean, what are the common myths about your industry right now? Are there any myths about the industry?
Well, number one, there are quite a number of myths. So number one, people don't realize how hard it is, because what happens is most times people see the finished work. The finished work looks really beautiful. Um, it's really beautiful. You know, you see magazine covers, you see all of that, and you're just thinking to yourself, like, oh my God, I saw the way they put that together. I can do it as well. And so some people don't realize the amount of education they need to be able to do this successfully. So I think that's the number one myth. You know, some people say, you know what, I was born with being creative, and that's fantastic. But creativity and the execution of that creativity, I even think more importantly, it's the execution of it. You know how they say ideas are a dime a dozen. It's so easy to have multiple ideas and say, oh, you know what, I'll just do this and I'll do that. But how do you bring it into real life? And how do you start understanding all of, you know, the elements and everything that makes a space work? So I think that one of the myths that people think is that, you know what, if I just put this together, put this and put this, then the whole thing works together. They find that as they start executing, it's a different ball game. Well, except you want to, you know, remain basic. But if you really want to do a very good job, there is a lot of education. You keep reading and learning every time. Like, you can't even say, oh, because I have a degree or a diploma, then, you know, I know it. No, you don't. There's still so much, and materials are constantly coming up. There are new things happening, new trends. So you need to be you know, be well educated. So that's one of the myths. The other myth is, a lot of times people also think, oh, there's a lot of money in it, you know, because it looks like a lifestyle business. But there are a lot of mistakes that could happen that could erode every single profit that you've made off it. So it goes back to the first one, which is the education of it helps you to be able to stay in business. I'll just leave it to those two.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because, of course, when we see the finished product, the fabulous work that we do, we just think, you know what, I can take a couch and I can turn this cushion this way and I can move this around that way. And I love the part that you actually talk about, you know, it comes with a specific academic background. You don't just jump into it and say, right, I'm good at colors and I can match a blue and a yellow. It doesn't kind of work out that way. So I love that, you know, get educated about the industry. That's a fantastic thing. And then what are the challenges that are really coming through now in the interior design space? Are there any challenges at all? What's going on there?
Honestly, there are quite a number of challenges in the interior design space. I will speak for Nigeria because that's my context, honestly. And I think even Africa as a whole, it is that sense of, you know, well, for starters, let me speak for Nigeria. For starters, in Nigeria, we don't necessarily have, you know, interior design. We've started having interior design schools, but what's happening is we have more of like architects. And so what happens is we then say, okay, if an architect has a passion for interior, then you bring them into interior design, and then that journey starts there. But it then means that there's a lot of like teaching process, learning process, you know, that whole process. So that can make it a little bit hard. And I think that also, yes, more clients are consuming interior design now, but a lot of times clients still need to be educated in terms of like expectations, you know, because there's all, you know, you see something, you've put a presentation together, you've explained it to them. But I also find that first-time consumers of interior design are not aware of how much time and effort goes into it. So for them, they're just like, oh, well, why does it need to take so long? Why is it so, you know, why? They don't understand the amount of effort. So I think that one of the things there for me is how do we educate clients to understand and appreciate the amount of work that goes into design, not even just the execution of, but even the creative process and, you know, the development process. So yes.
Sounds like you can also establish another wing in your business, educating the client.
That would be great. If they would sign up, I'll be very happy to.
Absolutely. I think put that in the bucket as your to do your futuristic goals. We need to train
Yeah.
our clients on the expectation and what it takes to do what we do. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna jump right real quick to almost the last question I think that we possibly have for you. And that would be, what advice would you give to our women listening in today, that would be interested in embarking on this journey of entrepreneurship, in particular to your industry, regardless of which part of Africa they're joining us from. So yeah, what advice would you have for us if I want to be an entrepreneur, and in particular I want to get into interior designing? What would in 3 words or maybe in 1 sentence, what would you give me?
You know what I would say? I would speak to interior designers, I speak to entrepreneurs generally, but a lot of times interior designers feel I'm a creative, right? And so they don't know their numbers. I would say numbers. What are your financials? What's going on there? How are you staying profitable? How are you staying in business? You must know these numbers. And as an entrepreneur, generally, you need to know, what is, maybe even if it's, let's start from your break even. How long is it going to take me to get here? And then how do I become profitable? How do I keep my operational costs low, expense control? Because what happens is, and I'm also learning that sometimes as you expand, you find out that when you were smaller, you were probably more profitable than when you got larger. But if you know what your break-even point is, it's easy for you to plan for the period where it seems like, you're not as profitable, and then you can take off on a tangent there. But it must be that you have done your projections. So, and it's not necessarily from a business plan point of view. I think it is more from an accounting finance point of view. There are books, Accountants for Dummies. Go, and your finance manager, your accountant, whoever it is that is handling money for you, develop a close relationship. Don't act like if you do not know. Tell them to explain to you, and when they explain to you, go and do further research on what they've explained to you in a way that you understand it. But you must know your numbers. That's what I would say. You must know your numbers. That would be my one advice to any entrepreneur. And it seems like a simple thing, but it's easy to lose sight of that. And then you wake up more money and find out maybe cash flow is a problem. So please, that would be my advice to everybody.
Have to know your numbers, which is something we don't do very well. I love that you're saying have a close relationship with your accounting manager. If you don't have one, ladies, an accounting manager, find one, and let's get into that. All right, Folakemi, one thing that the world would remember you for, what would that be?
One thing that the world will remember me for. I think the one thing I want to be remembered for is kindness and honoring people, regardless of, whatever the circumstance, whatever. I want people, when they come in contact with me, they should get that sense of, if it's all crazy out there, there's kindness here, and that, they'll be treated with honor and respect. I'm a work in progress. I'm not there yet, but that's something I want people to remember me for, that they felt honored, and when they encountered me, they had hope, that there was hope in humanity. So yes,
just listening to your voice and listening to that particular section, definitely kindness, honor. I'm even hearing a bit of humility in your voice, which is fantastic, because as entrepreneurs, we can't get ahead of ourselves when we forget that it's the very people that we serve that made us. So I love that. And then, of course, we want to know, our audience would like to know, where can we find out more about Folakemi, your business? Where do we find you online, and how do we get in touch with you?
So you can find me online at Folakemi at Teal-harmony.com. That's my email. You can find me on the website, www.teal-harmony.com. Yeah, pretty much it. Those are my two. Those are the 2 ways that you can find me. You can find me on the company website. You can find me on via email and social media for sure. So for Instagram, it's folakemi.dw, and on LinkedIn, it's Folakemi Oloye. That's it. Oloye.
Folakemi, I just want to thank you so much, for just taking the time to speak to us, taking the time to teach us, and, taking the time to just grow us into better entrepreneurs tomorrow. So from the Eswatini front, we love you, we appreciate you, and we thank you so, so much for your precious time.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I had such a fabulous time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this month's episode of the Women of Crazy World podcast. Remember to share the link to your women's network on your social media platforms. And because we absolutely love to hear from you, do drop us a comment in the comment section below on how this episode has inspired you. Looking forward to learning and growing with you once again. So do join us next month at 3 p.m. for yet another live transformational episode. For now, it's goodbye from us.